listening to this broadcast, you're a part of the Resistance.
Welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. My name is John Hoey. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We are 60 days away from Solo, a Star Wars story hitting theaters, and in honor of that, we are not going to talk about that movie at all today. But we are going to speculate on Episode 9 a little bit, check in on Rian Johnson's new trilogy, get to your Twitter questions. So let's get the show rolling by saying hi to James Bainey. What's up, man?
Dude, I was just at the store and I could not decide between Rocky Road and mint chocolate chip, so I did the thing that any normal adult would do, and I bought both. Best decision of my life.
That's amazing.
Did you mix them up into one and just make a mutant flavor?
Second best decision of my life. First best decision is deciding that I will be doing that later tonight.
All right. And this guy will be heading to DC to represent us at AwesomeCon this weekend. How's it going, Bill Sheehy?
It is going amazing. My cats are about to play. We have a brand new member of the Resistance. I am so ready to get this thing going. Let's talk some Star Wars.
And speaking of AwesomeCon, I am so excited to introduce the newest member of the podcast. She works for AwesomeCon, among other events, but I'll let her tell you more about that later. But let's give a warm Resistance broadcast welcome to the super awesome Lacey Gillerin. Hi, Lacey.
Hey, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Dude, I hear that all the time because I'm in the tri-state area and I listen to sports talk radio and they're always doing that. They're like, long time, first time, long time.
And you know that they always call. It's always the same guy. They're like, Tony, we know it's you.
Yeah.
Kyle, we know it's you, Kyle.
All right, guys. Star Wars March Madness Round 3 has arrived and we are down to 8 characters left in our coolest character tournament. The only upset last week was Kylo Ren beating Luke Skywalker for the coolest
My
character.
boyfriend always wins.
Listen, I'm going to go out and say it. Ugh!
And Kylo said, I know what I have to do, and I have the strength to do it, and I'm going to kill Luke Skywalker.
He didn't kill Luke Skywalker. That's the thing. He went on his own terms. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Okay, let's keep going.
I have pom-poms right now and a t-shirt that says Team Kylo, so...
Hey, there we go. See?
Luke Skywalker was owning that contest for pretty much most of the day, and then Kylo just kind of slowly just creeped up. I think more and more people just got on. It apparently turns out that most Kylo Ren fans sleep in.
They wake up at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah. They go to Denny's.
They check their Twitter feed while they're...
And then they start voting big time.
While the moon's over the hammy is on the way.
Right.
Raylo sucks. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Hopefully they were all wearing shirts in that Denny's and not taking Kylo too seriously. All right, but we are at round 3, and where our matchups are now with the 8 characters, we have Boba Fett versus Princess Leia, Han Solo versus Ahsoka Tano, Darth Vader versus Darth Maul, the Battle of the Siths. That's pretty cool. And Kylo Ren versus the guy who shot him in the hip, Chewbacca. And that is it. So the final 8 as we enter round 3, we are going to post one poll each day this week, starting with Boba Fett versus Leia right now. So after the show, go vote, check it out. But keep your eyes on your brackets because remember, the highest scoring bracket will win a Resistance broadcast t-shirt of your choice. And that is it for Star Wars March Madness. Like I said, after the show, go vote. But for now, we have to get into some news. So James, what's going on in the Newsnet?
Domhnall Gleeson and Daisy Ridley did some interviews with Radio Times where they revealed that while they liked the direction their characters took in Episode 8, they were well aware that Rian Johnson was shaking things up. They both also confirmed in their own way that J.J. Abrams is expected to similarly take the story in an offbeat direction. One particularly noteworthy portion of Daisy's comments were that she said she had heard nothing about Episode 9. Which seems interesting if Bobby Monihan's testimonial is to be believed when he was on Collider Jedi Council. Now, this is a quote from him. talking about when he introduced Colin Trevorrow to Daisy Ridley. He said, I introduced him to Daisy Ridley at the SNL after party. It was the first time they had met. I saw a moment where she said, what happens to me? And he said, do you want to do this now? And she said, yeah. And they went off into the corner of the bar and he whispered into her ear and she started crying. Now, we're all going to have to put on our tinfoil hats here for a second, but John, you were the one that brought up this topic. If I'm understanding correctly, you were proposing that Daisy did know at one point what was going to happen to her character in 9, but since Lucasfilm has parted ways with director Colin Trevorrow, they have since scrapped all his plans, which put her back in the position of not knowing anything.
Yeah.
So you think they completely scrapped Colin's story?
Oh, yeah. Big time. For a few reasons. One, he got fired during story development. They weren't in production, early production, any kind of filming, anything whatsoever. So he got canned for one reason, and it was the story. He probably butted heads with Kathleen Kennedy, didn't want to play ball, so she's like, you're out of here. Like, you know, Gareth Edwards played ball. When they wanted to do all those reshoots and rewrites, he stuck around.
Mm-hmm.
Lord and Miller, they didn't like it. They got booted. So I think they definitely canned his story. And then if you look at the timeline, when J.J. Abrams said he started writing this thing, I think we talked about this before, but it was like around September, and he finished up in February, which is 5 months, which I've looked into it, and that's pretty average in terms of first draft and then second and final drafts. So you take that and also add to the fact that J.J. Abrams is coming back to kind of finish the story he started. You don't want to pick up someone else's story and then try to put your story into it, and it will cross too many paths, and you'll get a Snyder, Whedon type of weird situation. So all those things point to me saying they completely axed his story and started fresh.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with the timeline. You know, Lacey, we hear a lot of fans talk about, you know, saying that the overarching story should be set in stone and that the director should be allowed freedom, but controlled freedom within the confines of the predetermined goal. Do you think that's the right thing to do for Star Wars? And do you think this is evidence that Lucasfilm is in fact not doing that?
Do you mean that the director should have their ability to put their stamp on things?
Yeah, so like it seems like the fandom tends to be saying like, is Lucasfilm really letting the directors just do whatever the heck they want? Shouldn't they be kind of like aiming the story in a certain direction? Like there should be kind of a set guideline, still allowing the directors to kind of do their, you know, freedom or their touch or their personal taste, but headed towards a goal. Is this just evidence that if Colin wrote a story and then they scrapped the whole thing, obviously there was no bigger goal in mind? Like whatever he had in mind for Daisy can't be true because she knows nothing about what's happening in 9.
Yeah, or they could be telling her not to say anything.
Yeah.
There's so many things at play with these kind of things where they could be like, you're not allowed to talk about this. Oh, you are allowed to talk about this. I mean, look at Adam Driver as an example. He never says anything about anything. He just did a screening of Last Jedi a couple weeks ago, and people asked him specifically about like his relationship with Rey in the movie, and he literally started talking about the ceiling fan. So like it's one of those things that like there's a video clip of him talking about the ceiling fan being like, oh, it's a nice fan. So it's one of those things like I think that the story group has what they want to do in mind. I think Kathleen Kennedy has a vision. I think Disney and Lucasfilm have their vision, and they know where they probably want things to end. And if they have a personality like someone like Colin Trevorrow, who has his vision and what he wants to do, and same with the guys that we're going to do solo, if they're conflicting with their personalities, it's never going to work well, no matter what their ideas are and how cool they are. If you're not going to play ball with the people that know the story better than you, then it's not going to work out.
So then what do you think it was that Colin told Daisy that you just found that information out?
So it's funny because when this came out, I remember watching this video with Bobby Monihan where he talked about this. And my first reaction was like, oh my God, she's crying. It must mean someone dies, or oh my gosh. She cries about everything, though. Like she cried when she watched the teaser trailer the first time where she's in bed and she's just like, it's so amazing.
Does she cry about ceiling fans?
And then but then she also cried. She was on, I believe it was Jimmy Fallon, because I feel like it's always Jimmy Fallon. She was on Jimmy Fallon or something like that. And she was talking about how she just found out that JJ was back at the helm and she cried. So she cries no matter what. So when you're gauging Daisy Ridley's news on how she cries, like that's not very logical because she's just always crying.
Yeah.
So are you with John then that they scrapped Colin Trevorrow's story altogether, or do you think that there is kind of a story group idea that they have in mind that is still intact, but maybe it was something possibly that Colin was doing specifically that was causing Daisy Ridley to cry that is now gone?
Right. Well, unfortunately, it's all hearsay, but from what I've read and studied on the internet, it was personality differences, just like with the guys with Solo. They were trying to take it in a more comical route, and that's not what Lucasfilm wanted. So they brought in Ron Howard. I think it's the same kind of thing. Someone like Rian Johnson came in and he had his specific ideas, but I guarantee he presented those ideas to Lucasfilm and they agreed with them. If you come to them with, hey, I'm going to do this to your characters, and you have Lawrence Kasdan saying, no, you're not, and then you're like, no, I am, they're going to kick you out because he knows it better than you do. He wrote all the originals. So if you're going to compete with those people and compete with Kathleen Kennedy, who has a vision for Lucasfilm and for where she's taking the company and these characters, which everyone has to admit they're doing a pretty darn good job right now of where they're taking the characters and the saga, it's really hard for anybody to say, oh, well, clearly they're not letting directors do their job. Well, maybe it's the director and it's not Lucasfilm.
Bill, where do you stand on this story? When they brought in J.J. Abrams, do you think they officially scrapped the story? Do you think that this whole Daisy Ridley thing is kind of evidence that she did know and now she doesn't know?
You know, Lacey brought up a good point where they're just going to, if they know something, they're not going to say anything. But at the same time, like we always heard the problems that with Trevorrow were that there were differences on story, differences on script. So it would make sense that his story was not working, and then they bring in JJ and he does his own new thing, which I'm okay with because I love The Force Awakens and he brought back Star Wars, and I'd never thought I would get that in my entire life. So I feel like they probably did scrap most of it. It wouldn't surprise me if they kept a couple of ideas from Trevorrow, and I'd be interested to see like 5-10 years down the line when all the new trilogy is out and they tell behind the scenes stuff like this was Colin's idea and this was JJ's idea. But I tend to agree with John because it's and I don't know if we're gonna get to this, but the conference call that we had that Boyega talked about, he hadn't read the story yet either. It kind of lends credence to the idea that they completely just scrapped the old story.
Yeah, I mean, everything just seems to point to that, you know? Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about the conference call later because Lacey's the one who hosted it. So
yeah.
I made John Boyega laugh. I can now die.
Yeah.
You did. Yes, you did. And you even told him that you were judging him. So, and he,
you know what's
I think
funny?
that's what made him laugh, actually.
You know what's funny? After I said that, I was like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? But it's all good.
Yeah, but he laughed. I think that made him laugh the most. So that was you called his bluff. That was good. But yeah, doesn't it just seem like everything's kind of pointing to this? And I don't know, like J.J. Abrams does. Like I said, I don't think he would want to come in and be like, okay, JJ, we're bringing you back. You had the highest grossing movie in North American history, but you have to use this guy's that we fired. Or you have to use part of his story. I don't buy that for
Yeah, it's not only that, though, that he also was the executive producer of Last Jedi and had said when Ryan wrote that script that he wished he was directing it. So to go from a story like Ryan, who's very, very different from Colin. I mean, look at the movie tastes and the movie dialogue and the way they work as writers. You can't go from a Ryan to a Colin movie. You can't go from a Looper to a Jurassic World. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen.
To popcorn,
Well, I will say one thing for me is, you know, if the story group was in fact kind of giving like an overall arc to the whole story, like let's say, for instance, Daisy Ridley is going to die in episode 9. They did that.
You shut your mouth.
Right?
You shut
I'm just saying.
You shut your mouth.
I'm just saying that if she already knew that, and then she meets Colin Trevorrow for the first time, and she says, "What happens to my character?" Then the story group didn't tell her. So then she goes over and she has a conversation with him, and he reveals to her what the overarching story is. This whole thing seems kind of weird because then now she knows, but then later she's saying she doesn't know. I don't know. I don't think there's an ongoing story that they've already figured out. I honestly think they're just saying the whole thing is completely like up to the director and whatever the writers of the story want to do, and they don't have an idea in mind where how this trilogy is going to end.
I agree.
So then I think
George Lucas didn't either, man, when he did the original trilogy, no matter what people want to say.
That's why Luke and Leia made out.
So
exactly.
She comes in and she says, Colin, what are you doing to my character? And he tells her, and there's something astonishing, and she gets like, oh, wow, that's sad or that's happy. I don't know, whatever. She has a reaction to that. Yeah.
That sounded more like Harry Potter than Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
It's like Dobby. Sorry, guys.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Dobby called you a monster.
But then after Colin had been let go and they brought in JJ, she now hasn't yet talked to JJ and asked him the same question, what's happening to my character? So she knows nothing. I think that John's pretty straight on this as far as like, you know, it makes sense to me that they would have had to scrap Colin's story just because they don't have something set in mind, and now that they have a new person, he wouldn't want to do the same story that the other guy was going to do. So they're just giving it a fresh take, and now that resets Daisy's expectations and what she knows about what could possibly happen back to zero.
Not only that, though, J.J. Abrams is like the most secretive person of all time.
Yep.
Dude's had a toy that he hasn't opened since childhood. Like he's in it for the long game of secretive things. So to have someone like that, where he had people in The Force Awakens, he told people lies to see if they would leak it. And then their pay was based on if they would leak it or not. Don't you remember Mark Hamill saying that? He was like,
Is that real?
I'm getting paid based on how much I don't say. So of course they're going to scrap it. Because JJ's going to tell them like lies anyway.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's like...
Well, there's one thing that's more incredible than that story, and it's Forces of Destiny.
Yay!
No, you got to do the Maz voice.
Oh, yeah.
Forces
the
of
actions
Destiny.
you take and the secrets you make. I don't know. They're all forces of destiny.
It
Lacey
rhymes.
did it pretty good there.
Yeah. All of this is true because it rhymes. Forces of Destiny is back this week with 8 episodes, all released at the same time versus the one-a-day rollout they did for last season. We've been a little bit hit or miss on these, but I think we're pretty accepting of them, and these string of episodes are no different. I thought we could take a minute just to kind of mention our favorites and our least favorites, and explain a little bit of why we like them and why we felt that way. Bill, I'm going to start with you. What was your favorite of this batch of Force of Destiny episodes?
Well, you know, I watched all of them just all the way through, and like I'd seen that there was one with Luke on Dagobah, and I was like, okay, that could be pretty cool. Man, that was by far like they were all pretty good. Like there wasn't one where I was like, okay, well that sucked. But the one with Luke on Dagobah with Yoda, man, that was the essential like Luke and Yoda relationship that I loved in Empire Strikes Back, and it expands on it a little bit, and that just felt so cool to see that. And not only that, but to have Mark Hamill like himself, like it's a little weird hearing like his current voice as Luke, but like he still like he tried to like put it up a little bit like to make it back to 1980 or 1979 Mark Hamill. But yeah, I really enjoyed the one with Dagobah, and like I said, there was no like there were 2 that I thought were like, whoa, that's awesome, and then everything else was like, okay, this is pretty good.
Oh, it's funny you brought that up because I hated that one. So
really?
much.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite either
what.
because of the Mark Hamill voice. I'm like, all I hear is old Mark Hamill.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker, before he got to Dagobah, he smoked a carton of Marlboro, and then he like landed.
Man, you're gonna be really upset when we see Solo.
And then Yoda's voice. I mean, I know Tom Kane did it on Clone Wars, but it's not very good.
I disagree.
You can't get Frank Oz to go hop in a booth for 20 minutes.
Dude's filming videos in a park on his Twitter. You can't get him on Forces of Destiny.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
he's directing What About Bob 2? I don't.
What if they just filmed? What if they just filmed Frank Oz talking on that park bench and made the episode based on whatever he says on that park bench?
Frank Oz does
Disney
not
ruined the
Muppets.
Muppets. That's all it's gonna be.
Yeah, exactly.
So, John, did you have a favorite?
I wouldn't say favorite, but the one that stuck out in my mind the most was the one with where Chopper's like flying the ship. And he's
droids like are just astromechs are flying everything now.
Yeah.
He does the charge theme. He goes da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then they blast off the windshield, and like Hera does this like jump. Like she could have jumped like 10 minutes before that, even though it's a 2-minute episode.
That was a
And then she's just
Space
like,
Jam
"Gah!"
jump if I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
That's a great movie.
That's,
I will not have you sully Space Jam.
that's the one that stood out to me, and the rest I don't really. I remember there was one where someone kind of got in the way of Anakin and Padme, and I thought that was kind of funny. It spoiled their little romance, but I don't know. I mean, I don't. They kind of flew by my brain because, like Bill said, I watched them all front to back, and they already escaped my brain, most of them.
For me personally, like, I think the thing about Forces of Destiny is, and this is probably how most people feel about all of them, but I just don't like the ones that really don't mean anything. They don't add anything to the story. They're just kind of like, you know, chasing around the Porg or whatever. But I mean, I do get that adds a little bit of like, oh, so even the smallest things kind of helped Rey or whatever, but it's hard to picture that scenario happening in the context of The Last Jedi, because that story had to have taken place during the movie. And so, like, when we're off watching something else, she's like chasing a Porg and then, like, you know, having to pull it back and stuff.
I actually kind of like that one, though.
It's Porg pandering.
I mean, yeah.
Porg pandering.
There's the
perfect amount of pandering.
There's the Porg one. There's the one where Rey's fighting Tito again.
That was my least favorite one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was your least favorite.
I just thought it was
Lacey,
I don't want to say stupid because I know how hard people work on these things and the talent and creativity that goes into these little shorts. But I just felt that it was just like, okay, we know Tito sucks. We know he sucks from The Force Awakens. Why do we need another video of how Tito sucks?
Yeah.
Second of all, Daisy Ridley is like the size of my arm. She is like the skinniest, most beautiful, like skinny girl, and she's carrying Tito.
I know.
Physics-wise, I was like, how is she carrying Tito if I can't even carry
Lacey,
Tito?
remember, she caught BB-8. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like in the last
true.
season, she like caught him. Like I was like,
mid-air.
whoa.
Like he got launched up and she jumped up, caught him, and
Just say it's the Force, and it just cures all.
So I agree with you. It's stretching the boundaries of.
If it was Last Jedi Rey who got jacked for that fight scene, I'd be like, okay, I believe it. But Force Awakens Rey, I can't see her carrying Tito.
Yeah.
the absolute craziest one is they wrap up the two. This is last season, but they wrap up the two stormtroopers. Then the one Ewok like pulls them all the way down. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like that. There's no physics
pulley.
in that at all. That doesn't make any
none.
sense.
Zero.
It's gonna make kids think that they could jump off buildings now and stuff. It's just really unsafe.
They're too busy eating Tide Pods, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Hey, that's
Is that still happening? Oh god.
It never ends.
It's just natural selection taking its course, man.
My favorite one, though, was the one where Leia and Chewie and R2-D2 go find Maz. I loved that.
So the one with Boosh.
I thought it was a great piece to tie the new
okay.
movies with the old movies and how she got the outfit. I loved that one.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that's easily the one that, for me, fills in a lot of story. It fills in that Maz was around in the Empire Strikes Back era. It also means that, you know, this is how there is a bounty hunter that is out there with this name, and that Leia had to actually defeat him. And it wasn't actually Leia either. It was R2, you know, that defeated Boosh, which is great.
That's such a fun name to say. You sound like you're Stan from South Park talking about cooking. Creme fraiche.
Yeah, creme fraiche.
It also confirms that Maz and Chewie did tease that romance. It wasn't just a one-time thing.
Yeah. Well, so that it gives them an official meeting. I didn't mind so much the Rose and Finn on the journey to Canto Bight, only because I know it was kind of added and doesn't really mean a whole lot, but I liked the jellyfish thing, and
I got a Finding Nemo vibe from that.
And I get that's what they're going for too, but like, to me, this is the stuff that is cool in the comics and in the Han Solo trailer with the giant tentacle monster thing.
No, man.
And yeah, I'm down with that. I am a fighter for the space whales, man. I love the Purgle. And I'm totally okay with them trying to make giant sea creatures in space. So That one was neat to me, in my opinion. The only one that actually like straight up bothers me, and I think this has been pointed out before, but the Anakin and Padme one, I'm bothered with Ahsoka knowing that they were in a relationship.
It doesn't really bother me as much. I mean, I think Obi-Wan kind of knew too, because like he had his suspicions at the end.
Had his suspicions, and they kind of got confirmed near the end, like before the last whatever. But this is like long early, and now it feels like she has reasons to, I don't know, she's like doing what another thing that the Jedi are strictly against, but she's okay with it because Anakin is a cool dude.
He's a sky guy.
Yeah. If your master's cheating on the test, that just bothers me when you find out and you're like okay with it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I don't like Anakin to begin with, so it's like, meh.
You don't like any iteration of Anakin? Like
no.
I definitely don't like little kid Anakin. I hated Attack of the Clones Anakin, and then Revenge of the Sith Anakin got better. But then when he started his like try to sound tough guy lines, it didn't work for me. Like, you underestimate my power. Like, nah.
One question for all you guys: how could Force of Destiny be improved?
More Kylo.
More shirtless Kylo for me.
So
I don't know about you guys.
Different characters.
I don't know. I take it just at face value, like those cartoons at the beginning and the end of like the old He-Man episodes where it just teaches a little lesson, and we can't think too much into them, and they're 2-minute little things that they're going to go in my ear, out the other ear, and kids are going to like them, and maybe let them watch other Star Wars stuff.
I think that's what we have to remember. Like, this isn't for us. This isn't for James, John, Lacey, or me.
No, I need to know which is better, the Ghost or the Falcon.
I mean, it's definitely the Falcon. Like, I love the Ghost.
Yeah,
but
we had Vanessa Marshall on, and she's even said the Falcon.
But Han Solo himself said that the Ghost was better.
I mean, Han, whatever.
Hey, what else is in the news, James?
No. All right. We'll move on. All right. At the Empire Awards last week, Daisy Ridley was given a Best Actress Award from The Last Jedi, as well as Mark Hamill being given an Icon Award. While that's awesome and well-deserved, the interesting story coming out of the evening is that Rian Johnson and Ram Bergman have slowly started their work on the next trilogy of Star Wars films. Now, Bill, is this too early to start? This was Rian Johnson's final press event for The Last Jedi, and he has taken 0 days of rest. What do you think?
You know, I don't think, when he says he started working on it, I don't think like he's like actually like doing like concept art and stuff like that. I think he's still like putting together the story. I don't think it's anything. I don't think they're going to start filming tomorrow. I think he's like, because even like when The Last Jedi was coming out, like the press tour, he was like, haven't even started it, a couple things, but not much. I think that it's more of like the like story stuff going into it. And it doesn't surprise me that he's starting right away, because like with this kind of thing, we don't have an official release date. So this thing could be 5 years away, and he's a day into the initial story planning. So it doesn't surprise me, but it gets me excited for what he's doing.
Now, Lacey, I'm going to ask you, since this is your first time on the pod, we don't really know your history with this. What do you think about the Rian Johnson trilogy?
I'm pumped. I love Rian Johnson. I think he's a wonderful director. I loved what he did with the characters in Last Jedi. I love where he took the saga, and he took it to an interesting place that someone like myself, who's very quick to guess endings and guess where things are going in movies, I have no idea where it's going to go.
Yep.
I love that he treated my baby Kylo with respect.
You mean Supreme Leader
and
Kylo Ren?
My Renper.
Gag me.
Renper.
So
you gotta trademark that, by the way, or something.
I'm not the first person to say it. I feel like I see it online all the time, but I'm stealing it. So no, Rian is going to do a great job. I think anybody that has the love for Star Wars like Rian does, and like you said, James, he has not taken a day off. He responds to tweets all day. Yep. He's liked a couple of mine. Yep. It's my claim to fame. And dude has nonstop talked about like Star Wars and everything that has to do with it, and he's responding to fans, angry and happy fans, and he goes to all these screenings. If someone is that passionate about Star Wars, I think it's in good hands.
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
Like when he got that, when they gave him that AT-AT toy, he was like a little kid. Or did you guys see that video?
Yeah.
I adore him.
And I think that seemed like genuine. So it's,
Yeah.
John, it seems that these guys are starting to break their silence on the project. What do you propose is the next public step for the trilogy?
Well, I have a little information that I received from somebody. And
Really?
But
twirl your mustache, Mr. Hoey.
it's information that is no information. So
Okay.
a friend who spoke with Ryan directly off the record while doing something else told me he asked him about the new trilogy and he said he's not really doing much on any of it yet. He's doing some writing on his own stuff right now, but hasn't really jumped into this trilogy stuff at this point. And that was a month ago. So they may be tossing around ideas right now like, hey, Ram, what do you think if I did this? And Ram's like, he's like French, right? He's like, well, Ryan, I think that would be a good idea if you did that.
It's a good idea.
That is a terrible
It's a
French
good idea,
accent.
Ryan. You need to do
Was that more like the Swedish chef or something? I don't know.
No, I was
Schmurgy.
I was confused because I thought John was on the podcast, but apparently Pepe Le Pew.
Pepe Le Pew. Okay. I apologize. I know we have people in France who listen to us, so I'm really, really sorry. I'm really sorry. But so anything they're starting on is very fresh right now. But the important part to me about all this is that it's confirmed that it's still happening because there were rumors that were starting to fly around that due to some of the TLJ backlash that they were back burnering this thing. I never believed it. I'm just saying people were stirring that pot. I'm glad to hear them out front saying, yeah, we're starting to work on this thing. And maybe that's why they said that, just so people know this is still going on. It's still going down. We got some time, but they're going to let Solo have the time now. I think late summer, you're going to start hearing, we're going here with this. We're going to take it here or something like that. So I'm thinking late summer, we'll start hearing something about this.
You think in the summer? I don't think till till Celebration next year.
No, not a formal announcement, but he may say like, yeah, I got a script going. I'm thinking about exploring this type of thing. You know, maybe shed some light on it.
I got you.
Yeah, kind of similar to what we got here, which is like this was not any sort of StarWars.com official press release. This was just him saying like, yeah, we've started working on it.
Okay,
and now
I got
some
you. Got
dumb
you.
podcast on Star Wars Newsnet is covering the story, right? No, but I think you're right. I think we got to let Solo get through its course, and we are probably going to hear a lot more about what Episode 9 is doing and how far they are on the script there. And I mean, we've heard that already, but like, you know, what's happening next before we start getting this Rian Johnson trilogy stuff. But I think you're right. It is nice to hear that they're still moving forward. And I would have never believed for a second. I mean, I hadn't heard that rumbling that, you know, maybe they might be taking a look at maybe moving away from it. But like in my eyes, I don't think there's anything really that could have caused Kathleen Kennedy to want to not work with Rian Johnson and Ram Bergman again.
I agree.
Considering
No, they love Ryan.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing is like, even if the movie had backlash, it doesn't mean you didn't get along with and work with the directors. So then as a team, the three of them can say, okay, all right, maybe let's not try that this time, but you know, we're still good friends and we still work together. Maybe we try something a little bit different, maybe a little bit more on course to what we think the fans will like, but it doesn't mean like, you know, the fans didn't like it. So even though we have a good relationship,
maybe more shirts are on next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe Force ghosts you can't touch physical objects through. I don't know.
We'll see.
They'll figure something out.
We'll talk about Force Ghosts Thursday.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got a big discussion coming up on Thursday. But as far as the actual news goes this week, that's about the wrap up, other than these couple little lingering stories that I want John to handle. So he's going to send you on the Scoundrels Rundown.
All right. The hyperdrive is activated, so punch it. Steven Spielberg is no stranger to Lucasfilm, having worked with George Lucas and company for the better part of the last 4 decades. A part of that relationship includes Star Wars Easter eggs in his films. Fans may know that R2-D2 and C-3PO appear as hieroglyphics in the temple in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Yoda appeared as a Halloween costume in E.T., and of course there's others, but most recently it has been revealed by Spielberg himself that at the very least R2-D2 and an X-Wing will appear in his upcoming movie Ready Player One. But Spielberg made it clear that he is going OG here and that no new characters from the sequel trilogy will make it in, only original trilogy characters. So sorry, Lacey, no Kylo Ren in Ready Player One. Tears. Speaking of the sequel trilogy, its latest movie is available on Blu-ray tomorrow. For those of you practicing your patience and waiting for the physical copy of The Last Jedi, wait no more, as tomorrow morning it will be available on 4K Blu-ray and DVD and maybe VHS, I don't know, everywhere. Probably Laserdisc. I think George Lucas really pushed Laserdiscs.
Maybe some beta.
Maybe some beta, yeah.
Some beta.
And we know all of these come with a digital copy of the film as well. So the wait is over, and now you could slide Episode 8 nicely next to The Force Awakens on your Star Wars home media shelf. And an item that could slide nicely into your closet is a Resistance Broadcast t-shirt. This rundown is brought to you by our store tpublic.com/user/Resistance Broadcast. So head there right now and check out our designs, find your favorite, pick up a shirt, sticker, coffee mug, whatever. It's the best way to help us continue to give you 2 free episodes every week. Now, our final story, when I mentioned The Last Jedi before, did I refer to it as the award-winning The Last Jedi?
You did not, but go ahead.
I should have, because my script says so. The Last Jedi took home 5 Empire Awards last week, as James was alluding to the award show before, for Best Film, Best Director, Best Actress, the often crying Daisy Ridley, according to Lacey, and the film also took home awards for Best Visual Effects and Costumes, which, how can you not? Those costumes on Canto Bight alone were just outrageous. Like, what other film had better costumes than that? Now, for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, and information, go to our website, starwarsnewsnet.com. Every day we have new stuff up there, and that puts a wrap on this week's rundown. Time to check in with Bill so we can answer some of your tweets in hashtag AskTheResistance. So, Chewie, get us out of here.
Okay, listen, I know I lost to Kylo Ren, but you don't need to laugh at me, Crumb. Welcome to Ask the Resistance, guys. Our first question comes from Ryan Simi at RyanScott00. He asks, do you think the saturation of Mandalorians in Clone Wars and then in Rebels has diminished the cool factor and mystery that Boba Fett used to carry as a character? I'll go ahead and answer this one, guys, if you don't mind. So I actually think that as someone who didn't really care for the Mandalorians until the Clone Wars and Rebels, I think this has expanded on it more than anything. And I think that the stuff that we got on Mandalore this season with in Rebels was really, really cool. And I don't think it saturated at all. I think it adds to it, and I really, really, really want to see more on Mandalore. I think it's such a cool concept now, and I just think there's so much to explore there, and I'd love to see some more stuff in the eventual animation sequel to Rebels that shows a little bit more of Mandalore, because I think it's a cool concept now, and I'm really, really enjoyed what they did with it.
Bill, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in really quick. I'm going to also
go ahead.
Point out, too, that Boba Fett is not Mandalorian.
He's a clone, that's right.
Before the Clone Wars even happened, George kind of squashed the whole Boba Fett and his Mandalorian background by putting him in the prequel trilogy as a clone that just happened to have Mandalorian armor. So
Right. Awesome. Good call, James. All right, our next question comes from Johan Pearson at Jope77. He asks, do you guys think there's any chance we will see Wedge in Episode 9? Maybe as one of Leia's allies in the Outer Rim, hanging out with Lando? I know Dennis Lawson turned down The Force Awakens, but one can always hope. Lacey, what is your take on this?
I don't think you're going to see Wedge. Sorry, guys. Let the past die. Wedge is not coming back. I do like the idea of finding other people in the Outer Rim, though, to help Leia.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of it. Maybe I saw something online about it being Ransom from the Bloodline novel.
Ransom Casterfo?
Who had outed her as being Darth Vader's daughter, as him helping her.
Yep. Loki? Tom Hiddleston? Yeah, I dig that. That's awesome. What about?
Yeah.
What do you think about Lando?
I would love to see Lando in Ep 9. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I'm pretty sure if he wasn't in the last two, they're not going to bring him in the last one. Sorry, Johan.
All right. Thanks, Lacey. Our next one is from Nathan Nobile at Nathan Nobile. That's a really easy name to remember. Greetings, fellow lorehounds. Do you think we will get any content set in the very early days of the galaxy, i.e. before the Knights of the Old Republic era? We better. Hashtag Sith Order did nothing wrong. James, what's your take on this?
You know, it's kind of funny. I just now read the question as for what it's actually asking, and I thought it was asking, are we ever going to get Knights of the Old Republic? And I was going to say absolutely 100% yes, no doubt about it. It will happen. It's guaranteed. It's coming. Before? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of thrown all of a sudden. I'm thinking now, before Knights of the Old Republic? Honestly, there's got to be, because I think that Knights of the Old Republic is going to be so big of a thing, whatever it is, whether it's a movie franchise or it's a television show or it's an animated show, that at some point we're going to fall in love with those characters and we're going to get books and other things that are prequels to those characters' stories. Mm-hmm. And I think they're even going to set it up like we might fall in love with the Old Republic so much that we start to view that similarly like the era where the Galactic Civil War happens, and then we want to know what was happening 1,000 years before that, you know. So I think down the line
before that,
eventually, just the same as if somebody were asked this question back in the 80s, or do you think we'll ever get like the back in the day when the the Jedi ruled it's coming, it's eventually going to come. So I think that's the answer to the question.
Gotcha. Well done. And our final question comes from, and I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, Shalaki at Shalaki2.
Slouchy?
I think it's Slouchy.
Is it Slouchy? Slouchy. Slouchy asks, at Resistance Broadcast, as a kid from the prequels and after reading the Thrawn trilogy, I just love Coruscant. Think we're going to see it again in a post-Empire movie or series? Hashtag Ask the Resistance, hashtag Star Wars. By the way, just listen to episode 99 for the first time. At Johnny Hoey. You're joking, right, about Obi-Wan versus Annie?
Wink face. Don't forget the wink
I'm sorry.
face.
I'm winking into the mic. All right. So, John, this seems to be for you. So, what are your thoughts
listen here,
on this?
Slouchy. You couldn't even lock down Slouchy 1. So someone else beat you to the punch. So that aside, the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight is the worst lightsaber duel in the history of the saga, and don't at me, Slouchy 2.
Boo.
Although he did at me, right? So I'm in this tweet. So it already happened.
He literally did at you.
As far as this question, Coruscant has to come back. It's like the Manhattan of the Star Wars galaxy, right? So I don't know that I don't think it's gonna appear in episode 9. There's gonna be too much going on. I could see a dip back to Mustafar in episode 9 or something like that. I don't think Coruscant's just too busy of a planet and too busy of a city type thing to try to wedge that into a movie where you're trying to tie everything up. I don't see JJ being able to pull that off, and I don't know if he wants to do that. But I don't think we've seen the last of Coruscant, and I would like to see it in another live action movie, because that was one of the better parts of the prequels for me, is like that imagery and what they were able to pull off with like those invisible highways and like seeing the speeders zipping by and all that stuff. I think that'd be better to see in live action than in animation. So
you mean Anakin jumping like a billion stories?
Doing a free fall. Yeah, exactly.
I hate it when he does that, as if he's done it like 30 million times.
So he's done it before, is what they're telling us. Slouchy 2, let me tell you, I want to see some more Coruscant, but I don't think it's going down in episode 9, so you're going to have to wait a little bit. So just slouch in your seat, take a rest, and it'll come to us down the road. Thanks for the question.
I wish we had a bell every time you said slouchy.
I just had a sandwich today from Slouchy's Deli.
Is that real?
Slotsky's is.
Oh, okay.
Goodness. Anyway, plot twist. I am actually Slouchy 1. Anyway, thank you guys so much for sending in those questions. If you want to keep doing it, if you want to ask us a question, hit us with that hashtag Ask the Resistance, and your question could be on the show. So thank you guys so much. John, closing thoughts.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, as Bill said, if you tweet a question using that hashtag Ask the Resistance, your chances of getting on the show increase greatly. So be sure to do that. We always have a lot of fun, as you just witnessed, answering them. So keep them coming, keep adding us, keep attacking us. It's all fun. Thank you for following, subscribing, listening, and spreading the word of our show. If you haven't subscribed yet, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube, all of which are free to do. Please take 5 seconds to rate us 5 stars on iTunes, and also go like our videos on YouTube and leave a comment. James is always in there interacting with you guys, so hit him up with some comments under the YouTube videos. Be sure to check out our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com, every day to stay up to date on everything Star Wars related, including the latest news and information, as well as editorials and reviews. James, where can our listeners find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MyraTrunks, MyraTrunks. And you can also find me on our TeePublic site, lusting over all of our shirts, trying to figure out which one I want and which one I can afford. And by the way, guys, if you see the things that we post sometimes about which shirts we have and stuff, not every shirt we have has been posted. So go actually to the website and look at them. Pick your colors or pick your design. Yeah, browns. Oh, brows. I thought you said browns. Get the browns, man.
There are some brown shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want a brown shirt, you can get yourself a brown shirt, man. Brown hoodie, brown onesie. It's all there.
And then go around the neighborhood and deliver packages, and no one will know who you are.
Yeah. UPS Supreme Leader shirt.
Yeah. Bill, when you're not wearing brown shirts, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Star Wars Bill. You can find me writing on Star Wars Newsnet. And this weekend, Easter weekend, you can find me at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. with Lacey. Lacey, once again, thank you so much for hooking me up with that. It means a lot, and I'm really, really excited to get to cover it for the site. So if you guys are going to be at AwesomeCon, look for me there. I'll be there. May the Force be with you guys.
Right on. And yeah, I believe this next person is going to be there as well because she works for them. So Lacey,
that's a good point.
Really good point. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Lacey Gilleran. So it's LACEYGILLERAN. It's Gilleran, like Gilligan. That's been the way my whole life. You can also find me at AwesomeCon. I'm the person responding to people via GIFs or fun moments on AwesomeCon social channels. Next weekend, you can find me at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. with Bill. We're going to have a good time. We have a ton of Star Wars stuff going on, so pay attention to Bill's pages. He's given some good highlights and might have some really good interviews with some really good Star Wars guests.
We'll find out.
Wink, wink.
Chewbacca.
You know, it's going to be a tall order, but I think I'll be able to do it.
I see what he did there.
Yeah, just hope the situation doesn't get too hairy.
something about a walking carpet. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. We will be right back here with you with another new episode on Thursday morning, where we will discuss the future of Force Ghosts. Will we see Anakin or Kenobi in episode 9? So make sure you're subscribed to the show and ready for our next transmission right here on the Resistance Broadcast.